Hello, this is ModelOmega, and you're watching Chapter 8X of my Thracia 776 play. First off, I just want to apologize if the game volume is a bit low. My settings were a bit off. Tanya, I want you to escape. I'll take him on myself. No, if I'm going, so are you. You'll just be a hindrance. Shut your pert little mouth and do as I say. Yes, Dad. Hey, not so fast. You're both gonna die here. Gomez, I don't want to fight you. Let's talk. I'm sick of this shit. What the hell are we accomplishing by working this worthless piece of land? I work my ass off day and night and I'm still starving. You're just being tricked by that bitch Yvel. What's the matter with you? Get a hold of yourself, you old geezer. Watch your mouth, boy. You're just a lowly servant of mine. All right then. Show me what you got. I'll take you all on. Alright, so as a guidance, just like 2x and 4x, 8x is a Fog of War chapter, and appropriately enough, just like 4x, it also happens to be inside a building. There are a lot of chests to pick up in this chapter, so definitely bring door keys, a thief, and chest keys. And also Asphalt. And make sure he has his graph caliber. Like, I'm serious, you need that, or you're going to have a hell of a time completing this chapter. I mean, honestly, unless you say trained Fergus to like level 20, promoted him, and then trained him to like level 10 and gave him Brave Sword, I think this boss is actually impossible without Asphalt. Like, I'm serious, once you see this guy, you'll probably know immediately that you need some miracle or magic to beat this guy. And if you don't, say, have an exception as what I described, and Asphalt is unavailable, well, you might as well just give up and restart the game. Like, I'm serious, you're not going to be able to beat this guy. I tried. It's impossible. You need Asphalt or a hilariously overpowered unit, like overleveled unit, with like the most powerful weapon you can get at the time. So yeah, actually, that sort of leads me into something that I completely forgot to mention when playing this, and it's actually something I haven't been doing. Keep 2 save files. Keep 1 save file the chapter previous, and 1 current. That way, if you end up in a situation like this, you don't have to restart your entire game. I had to do that once. It's not fun. So anyway, onto the chapter itself. When you first start out, there are 2 hallways going left and right. You'll probably want to split your guys up and have them go both ways. Dagda and Tanya here are trapped in an alcove that only has 1 exit, and it's a big opening in the start. And about 9 or so brigands are already there, so make sure Tanya is all the way up against the wall, or they might start swarming her. Dagda, even at base level, can probably handle all these guys, although there is the possibility that the RNG will not be kind, and he can feasibly die on the first enemy phase here, but that probably shouldn't happen. But, I mean, it almost happened to me once, but it was close. Just make sure he ended Chapter 3 with a Vulnerary, or Tanya with a Vulnerary, or this could be very hairy. You can definitely do it without him having a Vulnerary. I did, but it does require a lot more luck. Man, someone should give Dagda a Dad of the Year award. Just look at him go up against all these guys in order to save his daughter. He even says he'll take on Gomez, and once you see Gomez, you'll realize that, holy cow, he must have, like, balls of steel if he thinks he can take that guy on. As for the mooks in this chapter, they have overall low stats like the previous chapter, but the brigands with steel axes can do serious damage. They'll pretty much 2-shot any of your guys, and I had Shiva die so many times on this chapter, I decided to actually give him the 2nd life ring I had. I don't have him use it right away, but you'll see in a sec. My opening turn with Dagda probably could have gone better here. 3 of the brigands are still alive, and he got whittled down to 5 HP. Luckily, I can just have him heal next turn, but just having those 3 brigands there with Tanya kind of undefended worries me somewhat. Also, when you start this chapter, make sure that Dagda is within 3 spaces of Tanya, as Tanya does support Dagda. Although Dagda, for some reason, does not support Tanya, he only supports Marty. In contrast, the hunters with the steel bows are actually not that much of a threat. They have pretty low damage despite using steel bows for some reason. So just deal with them as you would normal. You don't have to be too careful about them. One other thing I can actually mention about Asshole in regards to this chapter, yeah, definitely bring him, but don't fatigue him in this chapter, if you can. He is also very useful in the next chapter. Not essential, but very useful, and you may have a very hard time dealing with a particular enemy in the next chapter if you don't have him with you. I've done it without him, but just keep that in mind. It's a guy that will give you a pain if you don't have him. By the way, you may be wondering why I'm having Shiva casually use his kill edge here. Well, he died so many times in this chapter, eventually I just said, fuck it, I'm having him equip his best weapon that's not the Brave Sword, because I don't want to have to restart this chapter anymore. I'm just getting sick and tired of it. Also, my original intent for this chapter was to bring Leafus and not Laura, but Leafus has fatigue, so I can't bring him. I'm going to be showing off a trick in this chapter on how you can basically give thieves infinite experience. I could have done this a lot earlier in the game, but I wanted to wait until now because this is one of the few chapters where there are no reinforcements, and the Crusader Scroll you get in this chapter is the only one in the game that directly increases build, and that's something you really want with thieves. The brigands in this chapter are so slow that I figured I would have Asshole use his Thunder Tome because he's actually running out of fire uses, and I don't have any extra replacements for that, but I do have Thunder. I typically don't like using Thunder unless I need to deal extra damage because its extra weight does mean that Asphalt tends to not double people as much, but in this chapter, everyone's really slow, so it doesn't really matter. For the record, if Tanya had been hit there and died, I probably wouldn't have restarted the chapter. Well, I mean, maybe. She was holding a lot of items, but I would have thought about it. I mean, I'm never going to use her. She's not useful. Her stats are low. She's under-leveled. Hell, I would probably use Ronan over her at this point simply because he's been with me longer if I really wanted to train an archer. So, yeah, I mean, after this chapter, she's just hitting the bench indefinitely. I don't really see a point in using her after this. There are way better archers in this game. And by archers, I mean bow knights. You'll see. But on to the chapter itself again. You may notice that there are two of these areas that are in between the alcove with Tanya and Dagda, and the hallways on the left and the right. Those two areas are split into 2 rooms each of which are locked with a door. In the bottom rooms of each are 2 chests. There are hunters inside the rooms that are equipped with poison bows, and they will try to take pot shots at you from inside their rooms. Make sure you have a ranged unit on both sides that can take them out. And if you want to maybe try and do the trick that I'm going to do, definitely bring the antidote you got in Chapter 7 here, because poison will definitely throw you off. And remember that you can't unlock the door or the chest unless it's already revealed on the map, so you may want to consider using a torch to illuminate a giant portion of the map, kind of in the center area where Dagda is. That'll reveal all the doors and chests for you. But I don't really think you need it. It just makes it less tedious. This chapter is very small. I mean, a torch pretty much reveals everything for you. So I don't know if you really need it, but if it's your first time going through the chapter, it's worth using a torch just to see what you're going to expect. And here I had Shiva use the life ring. I don't know if I'm going to regret this decision or not, because, I mean, he actually did, the reason he died in the other chapters is because enemies just kept hitting him with low hit rates, but now they're suddenly not hitting him anymore. But, hey, bulky Shiva is a legitimate strategy. I mean, he does have the Sun Sword, and he actually has a pretty good defense growth for a mercenary. So, there's that. And something specifically about Fog of War chapters that I never mentioned and has actually never happened to me yet. If you run into an enemy in the dark while you're moving in Fog of War, that's it. Your movement stops and the unit's turn ends. Also, I neglected to mention this, but I gave Havan the luck ring because his luck was at 2 and it wasn't going up, and I'm like, I don't know who I'm going to use this on, so I just decided to give it to my mainline unit with the worst luck, which happened to be Havan. So there's that. In hindsight, though, Finn would probably have been a better choice because he has prayer, which is directly involved with luck. Units without prayer, the only thing really that luck does for them is it lowers enemy crit chance, which can already be accomplished by just having them hold a Crusader scroll. It also provides a marginal bonus to hit and evade, but it's nothing earth-shattering and nowhere near as useful as like extra HP or speed. And yet again, there's an example of charge working against Dagda. I think they could fix this easily by only having it applied during the player phase. I mean, does this make sense? Does any of this make sense here? The most ironic thing in any Fire Emblem game, in my opinion, is being put in a situation where you have an archer attack another archer, and that's just crazy, because that just doesn't happen. Everyone attacks archers with physical units because they can't counterattack, but situations like this are just way too funny. And I didn't have Tanya attack that hunter because they can all two-shot her, and while I said I didn't really value her life that much, I also won't throw it away. I'm not that kind of player. I should really try to capture some of these brigands with steel axes. Othin really needs them because his strength just isn't improving, and I don't want to just buy them in shops because buying items in this game is just really freaking expensive, but I never captured any here, and I'm not going to be seeing Axemen for a while, so I done goofed. Although, to my own defense, capturing units in this chapter just opens them up to being attacked by the poison-tipped archers, or getting hit again by another steel axe brigand user. So, risk versus reward, I guess, is the name of the game here. I mean, and this guy here had a hammer. I could have really used that. But, I mean, I wasn't expecting it. It's been a while since I played this game. I didn't know there was going to be a guy with a hammer there, so yeah, I'm just going to keep continuing to defend myself. And I mean, I did buy a hammer in the previous chapter, which I'm not quite sure why I did, and then didn't buy any steel axes, but I don't know. I make very weird decisions in this game. I'll be making even weirder ones, most likely. I'm pretty sure that the only reason these hunters with poison bows are in these rooms locked away is just to annoy you. I mean, that particular hunter only had 8 attack. I think that's the same, or maybe even less, than the soldiers from the first chapter in the game. They're only here to annoy you and inflict poison on your guys. Oh, finally some goddamn strength. Seriously, Othin, you had me worried there for a bit that you were going to end up just a cherry tapper. I'm reminded now of another trend in this game and previous Fire Emblems that disappeared after this game, and that was the issue of experience. You may know in later Fire Emblem games, when you attempt to attack or dodge an attack, if no damage is dealt to the enemy, you only ever get 1 experience. There really isn't any exception unless you have Elite or Paragon, whatever doubles your experience in the respective game. But in this game and past games prior, you would always get a set amount of experience, usually around 10 to 15% if you were around the same level as your opponent, although less if you're over leveled. And I can see why this was removed, as it's very easy to just have an unranged unit sit in the range of a hand axe user and just have them grind experience for turn after turn. I actually do something similar to that in order to level up thieves very quickly, but I would not recommend doing this unless you have a plan around it in this game, because it will fatigue your units out if you do it after Chapter 8. By the way, this chapter is in all likelihood probably going to be Dagda's last hurrah. I'm probably never going to use him again in next chapters unless there's an extra spot that he could fill, or a lot of my units are fatigued, or maybe a very specific circumstance. I can't really think of one, but you're probably not going to see him after this chapter, so enjoy him while he lasts. He had a pretty good run. The really great thing about Shiva and high crit weapons is, like Othin, Shiva has a high PCC, in this case 4. Like with Othin and his Pooji, its 30 crit meant that if he double attacked, the second hit was almost always going to be a crit. But Shiva's PCC of 4, combined with the Kill Edge's critical hit of 30, means that his second hits will have a crit rate of 120%, meaning that unless the enemy has 20 luck and some way of boosting their own luck with some item that I can't think of, Shiva will always critical hit the second attack if he's equipped with a Kill Edge. There's power in math. I'm showing you how. Leaf is so overleveled at this point that he's getting almost no experience from killing these guys. It's kind of funny, actually. He's still not really a good unit because he doesn't have any killing potential. His PCC of 1 means that he's just never really going to be a good combat unit. And he doesn't have, like, say, a brave weapon like Finn to counteract that. No, he's just overleveled and has just average stats to show for it. He's never really going to amount to anything, regardless of what you see in this chapter or the next few. Leaf's light sword is pretty much the only thing he's got going for him, and it's not even as good as the fire sword or wind sword. Kind of depressing, actually. Well, a lot of this next part, up until a couple conversations, is mostly just a few occasional enemy attacks, so I'm just going to skip a part of this until interesting stuff is happening. So there are a couple optional conversations you can have in this chapter. This one here is between Leaf and Dagda, and the other is between Tanya and Othin. Dagda, you're alright. Ah, Lord Leaf, sorry to put you through this. Is Yvel with you? What's the matter? Yvel, she's in Manster. We couldn't save her. What? What were you doing in there? I couldn't do anything. I just couldn't. If only I were stronger. If only I had more power. It's alright. Stop blaming yourself. But I'm sorry I shouted. I wasn't expecting such news. But you're a tough one. Forgive me, I was a little harsh. Dagda, don't worry. I'll help you out from now on. I may not be as strong as Yvel, but I'm still tougher than these youngsters. We'll go back and save Yvel together. Or rather, I'll go back and save Yvel, and you will live out the rest of your life in my party's convoy. Sorry. Once you get to this upper room here where the boss is, this chapter mellows out quite a lot. Make sure you don't run into or leave someone in the range of the boss. He's just a few tiles ahead of where that brigand is. The rest of the enemies on this map are just more brigands and hunters. There's actually a thief with a lockpick that I would love to steal from that starts in this chapter in about the same area as those brigands that initially attacked Dagda, but getting to it while keeping Dagda and Tanya alive is almost impossible, and he leaves the chapter at the first convenience. You may think that he's here to loot from chests and take away items, but no, he just runs to the nearest stairwell and exits the chapter. It's kind of weird, honestly. And in case you're wondering, yes, a large portion of this chapter is me going to these rooms and unlocking stuff. I'll try and find areas to shorten, though, so this video doesn't end up being too long. I thought there might still be a couple hunters with poison bows down here, but I actually already killed them off. The thing is, for my plan with Laura to work, I need to make sure that no more of my guys get poisoned, because what I'm going to do is going to take a lot of turns and I won't be able to keep someone that's poisoned alive long enough for it to work. Also, now that Shiva is significantly more bulky, I am safe in just having him use his Iron Sword. I don't want to use any more uses of his Kill Edge than I absolutely have to, or feel forced to use. I'm being very careful in approaching this northern room here. The boss is in here, and he has both a close range and long range weapon. If I leave any one of my guys in his range, it's very likely that I'm going to end up with a dead unit. So I'm being slow, and I'm letting the enemies come to me, so I'm not being put in a situation where I need to leave myself in enemy range of the boss in order to attack them. Unfortunately, many of the enemies in this chapter are very picky and don't actually move unless one of your guys ends up in their range. So I need to figure out the proper areas for leaving units so they can come and promptly be murder-lated. And that there is kind of a silly thing about Fog of War. See, the chests weren't already revealed, so I couldn't just walk onto the space where I knew where it was and then press unlock. No, I have to reveal the space first and then I can walk onto it. Nah. By the way, these enemies here are coming from a room that's to the left of where this boss room up ahead is. It also has a chest there, and I'll need to open that as well. Now, having left Othin here over an enemy phase, I now know that there are no enemies left in that area, so time to move him back up to the rest of my troops. Except I don't for whatever reason. I leave him down there for another turn. I don't know why. I mean, it's not like the hunters can't already reach that side of the wall and shoot over, but I guess I just thought, hey, maybe I'll leave him there for one more turn to be sure, but I really gotta plan this stuff out better. Also have to think out better. It took me a long while to realize that I could just have Havan attack this guy once and steal his item. Forgot that he was already wounded and I wouldn't have to injure him first. Hand axes are pretty terrible, but it's always nice to have ranged weapons for your axemen, just in case. It was useful with Dagda earlier. And there he is. That warrior up at the top there is Gomez. I won't be showing his stats for a bit, but oh man, I still can't get over how tough this guy is. And over there, Laura just opened up a chest that revealed the Wrath Scroll. Yeah, that's right. You use that on an ally, and they learn Wrath. I'm going to have to think very hard about who I give that to. Now that we're in the final stretch of this chapter, aside from dealing with the boss and opening all the chests, I can put my grand master plan into action. I need to be able to trap one of those hunters completely so he can't move and can't attack anyone else. Then I'll have Laura come over and I will show you a pretty cool exploit that allows them to gain basically infinite experience by essentially stealing from the enemy an infinite number of times. It's pretty cool. Well, that was pretty lame, but, well, at least he didn't hit Shiva with that 16% chance. Probably should have had him use a more powerful weapon, because I really want this plan to work. But you're going to have to wait for next time for me to show that, as I'm approaching a mark where I actually do want to split this video into two. So I'll see you guys later with the second half of Chapter 8X.